Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Kelly's Astrology podcast. This week, I have planned something a little different. I am kind of deep into my end of year break. And so what I thought I would share with you for your listening pleasure this week is a private video that I recorded for my membership. So this is going to be a video that takes a look at the last 10 days of December. And you're going to hear all about the astrology that's happening. This is a little bit more of a detailed look compared to the kinds of podcasts I normally share. You're going to hear me talk about the sun moving into Capricorn, Venus moving into Capricorn. I'll be talking about the solstice. I'll also be talking about the aspects that planets are making in this last 10 days of the month, which this time around happens to include some squares to Saturn and Neptune. So if you're looking for a little bit of insight about what this last 10 days of the year, maybe it's a holiday time for you, maybe you're celebrating, this video is going to give you all the tips about what days have what astro energy going on them. So that's what I want to share with you today. So it's kind of like a sneak peek in terms of what I share inside my membership. People inside my membership, all the wonderful humans that are inside the membership, they get videos like this every week of the year. So if this is something that you like, you are most welcome to join the membership. You can pop over to kellysastrology.com to find out more. I'm thrilled to share this material with you because this is the material that I put my heart and soul into every month. The video runs about 22 minutes, so there's lots of juicy insights. There's an intro overview at the start of the video, and then I break down each of the astro events, whether that's a planet-changing signs or an aspects that's taking place. I break that down for you so you know what's going on energetically and astrologically and how to work with that. I did catch one blooper in the video. So when I start talking about the last aspect in this video, which is technically Mercury square Saturn, I introduce it correctly, but then I immediately make a blooper and say Venus Saturn. All the information is about Mercury square Saturn, and I mentioned the aspect a number of times after, and it's all accurate. There's just one little blooper. So I thought I would mention that in case any of you eagle ear listeners catch that. But mostly I just wanted to pop in, introduce this episode. Let me know what you think. Do you like this style of video? Do you prefer the more typical style podcast that I share? Let me know in the comments below. I wish you and yours a wonderful holiday season. I hope that you have a restful time if that's important to you. I hope that you have a festive time if that's what you're looking for. And I'll be back to more regular podcasting with a few surprises in store in the new year. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast journey for another year. If you have been enjoying the Kelly's Astrology podcast, I would love it if you could like, follow, or subscribe wherever you are listening, or maybe if you're watching, to make sure that you get notifications. I wish you all the very, very best. I want to say a huge thank you for joining me. Enjoy today's show, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the week 4 video for the month of December. Here you'll find insight and guidance, as well as tips on timing your life with astrology. So in this last week or 10 days of December, we actually have 2 planets that will move into Capricorn. We have the sun, of course, creating the solstice, followed a few days later by Venus. So in general, this can help ground the cosmic vibe as the sun and then Venus move out of fast-paced Sagittarius and into more measured and methodical Capricorn. You might be inspired to be really thoughtful and intentional about both your time and your obligations. The sun in Capricorn specifically might help with timely reflection and support you in kind of slowing down so that you can access timeless wisdom. Venus in Capricorn might highlight a love of anything vintage or old, or it could really help you appreciate the people and partnerships that have been in your life for a really long time. In addition to the Sun and Venus moving into Capricorn, we do have some square aspects in this last 10 days of the month. Most notably, we will have Mercury and Venus facing Saturn in Pisces, so making squares to Saturn in Pisces. And so as the year winds down, you might find that you need to make an important choice about who or what you're going to prioritize going forward. All right, team, let's dive in to taking a look at all of the astro activity in the last 10 days of the month, of the year. It's kind of mind-boggling to me that we are at the end of December already. So first off, we will start, we'll actually start with Venus. We'll start with her square to Saturn. And this aspect is on the 21st, Sunday, the 21st of December in most locations. So Venus has come to 25 Sag, where she will square Saturn over at 25 Pisces. Let me just fix my video. There we go. So Venus square Saturn. So this is a more challenging aspect for Venus, although you will have heard me talk about in the past how Venus and Saturn are two planets that are really interested in building things that will last. Venus at the personal level, so in terms of high quality partners, sustainable relationships, not just romantically, but with friends, family members, co-workers, etc. And Saturn wants you to build a life that provides security and protection and stability so that you can have choice without being too worried about how to survive and provide for yourself. Now, they're in a square aspect, so that's our first clue. A choice needs to be made. An adjustment to the current status quo is going to be necessary. And Venus square Saturn is often choices about who or what you love or who or what you can prioritize. So this Venus square Saturn is like, well, who do I want to be committed to, or what goals or intentions or habits do I want to make my priority? And if these things become a priority, then these other things kind of organically and naturally are going to slip away. They're going to be less attended to. And so we want to be clear, transparent, and as kind of intentional about that as we can. The idea with Venus square Saturn is that we are accepting or embracing or even setting some limits in some areas of our life so that we can go all in with the people, the projects, and the partnerships that matter most. So Venus square Saturn is a little bit of effortfulness around this Sunday, the 21st. You're not going to be able to do everything that you want. You won't be able to see everybody that you want to see. You want to really be honest with yourself about the time and energy required to have the experiences that you dream about. You know, Venus in Sag is like, I want to do everything. I want to experience it all. And Saturn in Pisces is saying you have enough time, enough energy, or enough money to do one or two of those 10 things that you want to do. So Venus in Sag kind of gets her wings clipped, at least for about 24 hours, as she makes that square to Saturn. It's not the end of the world, but it will provide both clarity and maybe a reality check. If you have been really grounded and really thoughtful with your planning up to this point, up to the 21st, you might find this isn't as pressing or intense as it may be for those of us who have been a little bit more Venus in Sag, a little bit more enthusiastic. We've said yes to too many things, and now we kind of run into limits that we cannot move. So that's where we're in that place of having to make a decision. Remember that Venus makes these more intense aspects to Saturn every few months. So we either have Venus conjunct, square, or opposite Saturn. So this is a periodic aspect or quality of energies that we're all working with. And when I frame some of these aspects that are technically more challenging like that, I can see I can sort of see how they're serving as a helpful, even if uncomfortable reminder to get back on track. So that's what we can think about with Venus square Saturn for the 21st. A little later on the same day, we have the Sun leave Sagittarius and come into Capricorn. So it is the solstice. It is the start of Capricorn season. So there's a few things going on. If you're in Australia, the Sun coming into Capricorn and the solstice is on the 22nd on Monday. And for most other locations, it'll be Sunday, the 21st. So Sun into Capricorn. This is definitely going to slow the pace down. We're going from speedy, fast fire sign Sag into earthy, anchored, grounded Capricorn. So we're going from a hot fire sign to a cold earth sign. So we slow down. Now, the other thing, though, is we get more specific. We get more clear about the initiatives or about the specific outcomes or goals we want to set, because Sagittarius is mutable and is very spread out, kind of doing lots of things at once. Capricorn is a cardinal sign, and cardinal signs are very explicit. I'm doing this, I'm going in this direction, this is the thing I'm focused on. So that kind of narrowing of focus will actually support. It helps set you up for success. It supports you building momentum and creating progress towards something that you have been really thoughtful about selecting as an important goal. So Sun coming into Capricorn, we slow down. We also realize we may have had too much going on, and we start thinking about, what do I want to achieve or move towards? What do I want to create progress around over the next 4 weeks? So Sun in Capricorn is a much more productive, constructive placement. We do have a big quality of energy shift. Sun in Sag is ruled by Jupiter. Sun in Capricorn, of course, ruled by Saturn. And so there is this sense, some of you will experience this as a little bit of melancholy. Some of you will experience this as a sense of remembering your maturity or reconnecting with your wisdom. You know, Jupiter has a lot of wisdom. Saturn is more of like that grandparent, grandmother, old earth wisdom. And we often worry less about the short term because we are really thinking long term. So think 5-10 year timelines plus with the Sun in Capricorn. Now, the other side of the Sun in Capricorn, of course, it creates the solstice. And that for many, many hundreds and thousands of years for humans has been an important marking point in the annual calendar, in the yearly cycle. And so it is a time of transition. It's a time of both reflection over the last 6 and 12 months, but it is a natural point to think, where will I be 12 months from now? Not where will I be at the start of 2027, but where will I be December 21st, 2026? Where will I be on the next Capricorn solstice? What heights do I want to move towards? What transitions do I need to make? What do I need to move away from? And what am I looking to go towards? So the solstice, it comes from the Latin. It talks about the soul, the sun, in stis, stillness. So the standing still of the sun. And so it's really appropriate to slow down at some point. You know, if you can do it around the solstice, the 21st, that's ideal. But I always think at some point in Capricorn season, to slow down, to take a break from your regular rhythms, routines, and responsibilities so that you can reflect and do some more thoughtful, strategic planning. So that's an important marker. The sun has reached either its highest point in the sky if it's summer, so for our Southern Hemisphere friends, or its lowest point in the sky if it's winter, so for the Northern Hemisphere crew. The sun is at one of its turning points. And so if we kind of hold that we are inspired and guided by the sun, we recognize that we are at a turning point too. So that is the sun's shift. And I think the quality of energy in this last 10 days of the month is very different because we come out of Sag season and some of the scattered, wild, unfocused energy, which is so fun, but can be very freeing, but can be a little bit busy for some of us. That Sag energy kind of calms down. And so there may be almost like a slowing, soothing with the sun in Capricorn. I'm thinking about being ruled by Saturn in Pisces for the moment. So that's the 21st of December. Then we have a few days where the moon is just cruising and the other planets aren't making aspects. And now we come to Wednesday, December 24th. And here we see Venus in the spotlight for 2 reasons. She is making another aspect and then she'll change signs. So first up, Venus has now come to 29 Sag, which means, of course, she's going to square Neptune at 29 Pisces. That is on Wednesday, the 24th in most locations. So Venus square Neptune, especially at this end of the year time where things often look a little different. Venus square Neptune feels like letting go. It feels like surrendering into whatever is right there. I haven't done all of the things I dreamed about, and we're just going to let them go. We're going to kind of have it all wash out with the tide at the end of the year. There might be a lot of feelings with Venus square Neptune. There may be a mix of inspiration or that sort of sense of kindness and compassion being aroused. So that outflowing of emotion towards someone or a group of someones who may be struggling. But we can also be grappling with some disappointment. Squares to Neptune can often highlight, what is it that hasn't lived up to my hopes or wishes? Where did I have a dream that is going to be unfulfilled? So that kind of longing for what could have been, but that need to let go and kind of be with what is. There's a whole kind of multitude of layers in Venus square Neptune. So navigating maybe a disappointment, but the undertone of the energy here is, I dreamed about many adventures, and even though I haven't had all of them, maybe we have a little gratitude for the one or two simple adventures we might have had or experiences. But I think with Venus square Neptune, especially at 29 Sag to 29 Pisces, there's something here that says, I'm letting these old dreams die. I'm letting them go. I'm ready for new dreams, for new visions, for new hopes, for new wishes. I don't know what they are yet, and I can't get to them yet. What I need to do now is rest and make peace with what has and hasn't been. So I think there's a lot of emotion in that Venus square Neptune. So we're going to be surrendering. We may be in a place of uncertainty. And that may not be the whole day on the 24th, but it may be part of that day. And so embracing that sort of unknown or finding a sense of peace or ease in a situation where things aren't clear yet, that could be really important with Venus square Neptune. That aspect is done within 24 hours. And so you might feel it a little bit on the 23rd as Venus is rolling into the aspect on the 24th. But by the end of the day on the 24th, done. Venus has changed signs. So she's left the Neptune kind of haze. She's got grounded and she's a little clearer. So that's what I mean. If you get swept up in something where there's a lot of emotion or you feel a little bit of sadness or you feel more tender and vulnerable, kind of be gentle with yourself and know that it's not going to last a long time. Because later in the day on the 24th, Venus moves into Capricorn. So if you're in Australia, Venus into Capricorn is actually the 25th of December. But for most other locations, Venus will slip into Capricorn later in the day on the 24th. This is a great sign change for Venus. Venus has some triplicity strength in the earth sign, so she's very comfortable here. And we get this really grounded, solid, reliable version of Venus when she's in Capricorn. This is the organized Venus. This is Venus who's very practical. This is Venus who understands that a way of supporting love and friendship and connection is through structure, it's through routine, it's through planning, and it's through making and honoring commitments. So Venus in Capricorn really brings that sense of how do we want to organize our fun or how do we want to organize our time together? So whether this is in a love relationship, with family, with friends, Venus in Capricorn for the next almost 4 weeks may be a chance to kind of put some plans together for what the next kind of short to medium timelines might look like. So we're kind of using Venus in Capricorn ruled by Saturn to grab the gifts of Saturn, planning, structure, organizing, and routines to help support sweetness, enjoyment, leisure, relaxation, connection, all of those Venusian things. Venus in Capricorn is very embodied, so there's that solid but tactile quality. Venus in Capricorn, of course, also has this love of vintage or anything old or historical or perhaps a love of traditions even, if you will. Venus in Capricorn really appreciates depth and longevity. So if there are people that have been in your life in a way that has been supportive or solid for a long time, Venus in Capricorn is like the appreciation for that. Venus in Capricorn is a clue that we are orienting towards people that are reliable, that follow through in the ways they say they will. Venus in Capricorn does not think we can do it all or have it all, But once she makes a choice or once she makes an agreement, she's pretty locked in. And so this is a great transit to practice being thoughtful and intentional with your agreements with other people in all kinds of relationships, and really being diligent about the follow through. We said we would do X, let's make sure that's what we do. And if we've said we would do X and it turns out that we're not going to be able to, is there a way we can restructure or reform that initial intention so that we still get something that's agreeable for both of us? So I really like Venus in Capricorn, but it is a more kind of stoic version of Venus. So it's like the simple pleasures, the importance of quality time. It's no muss, no fuss, but there is something about togetherness and about being there or showing up when it counts that Venus in Capricorn really wants to express. So then we actually have another few day period where the planets aren't making aspects. The moon will be rolling through Pisces on the 25th, 26th, and even into the 27th. So that has, a little bit of that flowy energy. But of course, the moon will meet the North Node, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So check the moon power dates for that. So our next and final aspect is on December 30th, where we have Mercury in Sagittarius square Saturn in Pisces. Now, I'm kind of glad this is happening on the 30th and maybe not the 31st for those of you who like to celebrate the end of the year, the end of the month, because Venus square Saturn does have a little bit of worry, a little bit of stress, or a little bit of pressure in it. This aspect, because of a couple of technical reasons, which I'll tell you in a second, was on my shortlist for one of the more challenging aspects for the month. Mercury technically is in the sign of its detriment, and it's applying to one of those more classically dynamic or challenging aspects with Saturn. So that fulfills a number of traditional criteria for a really tough aspect for Mercury. Mercury's at 26 Sag, Saturn is at 26 Pisces, and it is December 30th in most locations. So it'll be later in the day if you're in Australia. It's kind of earlier in the day as we kind of move through. It'll be very early in the morning in Canada and the US, and kind of middle of the day, late afternoon in the UK or Europe. So if you're in Canada and the US, you might actually notice this Mercury square Saturn on the night of the 29th. So just depending on where we are. Mercury is moving reasonably quickly, so it does kind of go into and through this aspect rapidly, but there'll still be a few hours where Mercury is kind of, when Mercury aspects a planet, a way to think about that is Mercury has given that planet a megaphone. So Mercury has given Saturn via a square aspect a megaphone. So there is the voice of caution, the voice of reason, the voice of hesitation, maybe even a little bit the voice of fear. So that's where we get some of this worry or even, again, uncertainty here. So we might find ourselves having to make a hard but necessary choice. It is going to be a great day for restraint, for pulling things in, for caution. It's not a day to kind of take a lot of risks, for instance. We're sort of more protective or we're more hesitant under Mercury square Saturn. So a hard but necessary choice, that's a classic Mercury square Saturn aspect, or even a Mercury opposite Saturn aspect. We don't love the facts or the information or the options, but that's all we've got to work with, and we do need to make a decision so that everybody knows how we're going forward. Working really hard on communicating as clearly as you can with Mercury square Saturn is going to be a good plan. I always think with a Mercury aspect like this, if you're not sure whether you should communicate or share something, communicate and share it. It's better to over-communicate than under-communicate in something like a Mercury square Saturn. Your brain is going to need a rest under Mercury square Saturn. There is one or two really important things that need your full attention. So you want to limit unnecessary distractions as much as you can. Time in nature, time to move your body is going to be really helpful, and making sure you're well fed and well watered. So we don't really want to, be making these sort of pressured decisions on an empty stomach if we're a bit dehydrated or if we haven't had any movement or fresh air yet. One of the things I think about with Mercury square Saturn is a mental pressure. And so this aspect might kind of kick up some worry or fear about what's to come. Will it go this way? Will it go that way? And I think about what's to come because Mercury's in a fire sign, but I also know that Saturn tends to worry about what has happened. So Mercury Saturn is this really, like Mercury in Sag to Saturn in Pisces, is this really weird mix of both being worried about what things might look like going forward, but also being a little stuck in ruminating on what happened and whether we said the right thing, whether we should have done something differently. So anything you can do that will circuit break thoughts that are more worrisome or fear-based is going to be really helpful. If you can get a laugh in, if you can put your favorite comedy show on, if you can chat to someone that you know lifts your spirits, if you've got a beloved pet or even like an infant or a young child that will just serve as a good distraction for an hour or two, that's going to be really helpful. And as much as this is an important aspect for making like big decisions or decisions that have long timelines or long-term like outcomes, it's also like you don't have to make that decision in the first 5 minutes. You're like, okay, I know I need to make this choice today, but first I'm going to hang out with my niece, or I'm going to pop down to the beach, or I'm going to take a walk outside in the fresh air. And then once I've had a chance to kind of let my thoughts swill around, then I might kind of sit quietly and think this is the best way or that makes the most sense. With Mercury square Saturn, it's not often the choice that we want, but it's the choice that is most practical or most reasonable, or it's even a choice because it's a square. We're adjusting and maybe we're negotiating with someone else and none of us get exactly what we want, but we find a place that's okay enough. So that's all we're looking for. And because it's an aspect of kind of mental effort, I would love for it to be over before the 31st for anybody who wants to celebrate and enjoy, the end of the year. And that will be the case because by then Mercury will have moved through the square to Saturn. By the time we get to the end of the day on January 1st, Mercury will be in Capricorn, which is a much better place for Mercury. So Mercury is a little bit funky at the very end of the year, but it doesn't last. And once we roll into, did I just say the start of Capricorn? I meant the start of January. I'm not sure what I said there. By the time we get to the end of the first day of January, Mercury has rolled into Capricorn. So Mercury is more kind of grounded at that point. So that is it for me, team. Amazing to think we've come to the end of our weekly videos for December. For many of you, this has been another year together. So I really want to express my gratitude for your energy, your time, your attention as being part of this membership. It is such a delight to bring you these insights every week. And I can only do it because you're interested in having astrology as part of your daily and weekly life. And of course, a warm welcome to all the members who've joined us in 2025. I look forward to sharing even more as we go forward together in 2026. As much as this is the end of the weekly videos, it's not the end because of course we've got our Check Your Chart video to come. So I'll be back to share more there. But if I don't see you in that video, I want to wish you a really calm, grounding end to the year. And I look forward to sharing more in 2026. Okay, bye for now. Hi all, I was so excited to mark the end of the year and thank you all that I completely forgot to do the look at the week in the program. So this is your week 4 video part 2, which includes the missing bit from the week 4 video part 1. So my apologies for that. Okay, so we got anyway, I'm just laughing at myself. I'm recording this. We record the videos a good month, maybe 6 weeks ahead. And so I am recording this, of course, while Mercury's retrograde back in November. So hence we've had a little bit of a blooper. Okay, so nonetheless, let's take a look at what's going on here. We start with the Venus square Saturn aspect. So we're looking, of course, at the 21st of December. Venus in the tail end of Sag. Oh my goodness, hang on. Here we go. Technical bloopers all around. Okay, so hopefully you can still see my screen. Maybe you didn't see what just flashed up. It was the video processing on the first part of this video. Anyway, all right, Mercury, can we just have 10 minutes? All right, team. So there is Venus coming to the tail end of Sag, squaring that Saturn. So there's a little bit, one sort of catchphrase or soundbite that I have for Venus square Saturn is something like a relationship reality check. And so you might want to prioritize checking in on your most important people because somebody in your inner circle might be struggling a little bit or, feeling a little bit pressured. And if you have some capacity, reaching out to, be a friend in a time of need or just commiserate because maybe you're a little pressured as well. But there's something with Venus square Saturn. It's very revelatory in its essence, in that when you too are a little pressured or feel a bit spread thin, there's usually a couple of people or a couple of activities that you reach for, and they are really important. So in a Venus square Saturn aspect, I think who or what we reach for if we're in a pressured or challenged situation is a clue to who or what matters most to us. So Venus, of course, we think a lot about relationships. So your closest friends, if you've got a family member you're really close to, or a coworker that's a real buddy or friend, and of course a romantic partner fits in there as well. But remember that Venus is also the sweetness in life. It's like the leisure, the relaxation, the kind of enjoyment activities. They're not necessarily the same as hobbies. They're things that you do for fun just because you enjoy them, not because they achieve an outcome or they get anything done. Now, in a Venus square Saturn aspect, we could also say that we have limits around our ability to do the things we do just for fun. We have to do work before play in Venus square Saturn. And sometimes it's the one thing we really like, oh, I wish I could do that instead of these other 5 things. That important one thing that you long for, you're learning something about what is pure relaxation for you. So you may not get a lot of that on this day under this aspect, but you may get clear how important it is to you. So there's lots of ways to think about that square. Keep an eye on the sun. I'm going to animate this forward by 24 hours, and we're going to see the sun go from about 29.5 degrees Sag to about half a degree into Capricorn. And that, of course, means that sometime on the 21st, the sun shifts into Capricorn. So in my location, Eastern time zone of Canada, it'll be around lunchtime. It'll be around the middle of the day. So you can kind of so that means in Europe, it's kind of around dinner time, just after sunset for the solstice. If you're on the west coast of Canada and the US, it's going to be, kind of early morning, like right around breakfast time, 9 a.m. And if you're in Australia, it's going to be in the wee hours of Monday, the 22nd. So that's the solstice, the sun coming into Capricorn. It is getting grounded. We can see the sun is now getting close to Mars. Mars is here. And so that is going to add like this sort of energetic undertone to the sun in Capricorn this year. I want to say 2025 and 2026, but certainly it's calming and grounding as the sun shifts signs. We go from fire to earth, and we're also thinking about those important solstice turning point reflection themes as well. And I know that sounds simple, but even just making a little bit of space to reflect in that way, that connects you to ancient nature-based cycles that have guided humans for, eons. And so like some pause or slowness or consciously getting out of your regular rhythms and routines is a great way to do that. Then we have a couple of days. You can kind of follow the moon as we go through here. It does bump into Pluto. So all the moon aspects will be in your moon power dates. And we come through to Wednesday, the 24th, where Venus is moving through the tail end of Sag and squares Neptune. So this is a little bit of that letting go, that surrender, that release. Under Venus Saturn a few days ago, you might have had some clarity. You might have been working on some important choices. And here we sort of think, I can't sort of fight or push. I'm going to let it go, give it over, and see what comes next. There's also, as we mentioned with Venus, Neptune, there's a piece here of letting the old dreams die. It didn't work out. It's not going to be what I hoped. We'll find a different new way forward. For now, and with Neptune, I always think about the waves coming up onto the beach and just washing things away. So we're letting it go. We are acting with compassion, maybe kindness. We don't have to overstep our boundaries in that. But we also know under Venus square Neptune that not everything is as it seems. And that's why we don't want to get too swept up in it, because things are foggy and unclear at least temporarily. Shortly after Venus dances with Neptune, she will change signs and come in to Capricorn as well, which is a very kind of grounded, organized, practical version of Venus. So if you notice yourself wanting to lock things into a calendar or wanting to set things up, Venus in Capricorn is very proactive. And so we are wanting to organize, short, medium term plans with our loved ones or for fun activities with Venus in Capricorn. And you can see how, as we're going to be rolling through the end of the month and into January, we do have a real collection of planets in Capricorn. And by the start of January, Mercury is in there as well. So we had those few days in December, which had those extreme amounts of planets in Sagittarius. This is like the complete opposite of that. So from January 21st to January 17, so it's about 2.5 weeks, we will have Mercury, Venus, Mars, and the Sun all in Capricorn. So with Mars there as well, Mars is only in Capricorn once every 2 years. There really is this sense of what is my plan? So time blocking, looking at a calendar of the whole year. Who am I seeing when? What are my goals? What are my personal goals? What are my fitness goals or financial goals or career goals or family goals? This is one of those years where doing some of that practical annual, biannual planning will really make sense. Okay, then we roll into the last weekend of December. The moon is going through Pisces, bumping into a few planets. And then we come all the way around to December 30th, where we have that Mercury square Saturn aspect. And so Mercury square Saturn, that's where we are maybe making choices. We're navigating limits. We're dealing with a little bit of worry or stress. And it might seem funny, especially for those of you who might be on holidays or off work or just going at a slower pace this year. There's a little bit of a ruminating energy to Mercury square Saturn. And another tip that's really good if you get stuck in your head is to write down your worries. It sounds so simple, but there are many studies that show the research behind why this helps. And it has to do with externalizing the fear, the worry, or the problem. When we're just thinking about it, it's stuck in here. We can't get away from it. We feel consumed by it. If you just wrote your thoughts and worries down on a piece of paper, immediately you can see it as something outside yourself. And then you realize that problem isn't me, it's a thing, and I can decide how to interact with it or relate to it. It creates something called therapeutic distance, and it's a great strategy for any worry, but I think anything that helps us calm or soothe our worried mind is really helpful under a Mercury square Saturn aspect. You might be making an important long-term decision. Some of you might be dealing with official or formal paperwork. That would be really important to keep in mind as, it's totally okay to do that here. What we want to have respect for as Mercury interacts with Saturn is that we're making a choice that we probably can't undo and that will have long-term outcomes or consequences. And maybe it's like renegotiating a financial agreement. You're like, I want this to have long-term outcomes because this is a plan. Maybe you're agreeing to it because it's a better deal for you. Maybe you're agreeing to it because it's better than nothing. And so because it's in mutable signs, it's possible that you could readjust it in the future. But the most likely scenario here is that we're making a plan that we're going to have to stick with for a substantial period of time. And so we want to be really thoughtful. And if we have hesitation, we want to find ways to verbalize or express those. So having some important conversations, maybe uncomfortable conversations, trying to bring some of that wisdom or maturity into our discussions, our planning, and the agreements we're making, that's what we're trying to get to with Mercury Saturn. We'll each get there in varying ways, some of us more or less successfully, and that's okay. Think of it as I've learned what works, what doesn't work, and now I have wisdom to draw on for next time. And that will be the end of the major aspects. We'll have the moon going through Taurus in the early part of the 31st. By the end of the day on the 31st, the moon has gone into Gemini, which will certainly be fun for socializing for those of you who like to celebrate the end of the year. And I know I can never stay up past about 9 or 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock. So, whatever you're doing at the end of the month, I hope you're having fun. I hope you've got some interesting people to talk to, and that kind of sets the tone for maybe interest and connection for the year ahead. All right, team. So that really is the end of the week 4 video. We've got everything in here. And, as I was saying at the end of the video, the part 1, I do so appreciate you being part of the membership. I love being able to share this info with you. I love to hear how you're using this info in your life. I especially enjoy when we get together on our live Q&As and we get to have a little bit more interaction time. So I look forward to more of those connections in the year ahead. But for now, I wish you a fabulous end to the month and the year. All right, see you soon.